everybody. We are going to be painting a paper that we're going to be using to make our fall leaves. So today we are going to start by using our fall colors to paint this paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by getting a scoop of white and then a scoop of one of my colors. So then my brush kind of looks like that, a little bit of white, a little bit of one of my colors. And I'm going to start by just painting part of my paper. And I'm not trying to like stay in a specific section. I'm just kind of painting part of my paper. And I kind of have some brush strokes going. I'm going to get a new scoop of white and a scoop of a different color. Okay, so I painted another section. Now I'm gonna get a little more white and another color. And what I'm gonna start doing is kind of starting to put some brush strokes of my new colors into the old colors I've done. Get a little bit more white and a little bit of my last color. So I know it looks like I've painted this whole corner yellow, this whole corner brown, but what I'm gonna make sure I do is kind of get some of these yellow brush strokes up here in the top. And I'm kind of always trying to get a little bit of white so things aren't quite so bright. But you can see, because we're never washing our brush, even though I didn't do red since the very beginning, there was still a little bit of red in my brush down here when I was painting the yellow. I'm gonna make sure that I don't leave any white spots on the edges or corners, because like I said, we're gonna use this paper to make our leaves next time. Now I'm not gonna blend anything too well. So you kind of want it to have streaks of some colors and streaks of other colors. So then next time when we cut out our leaves, there will be, in each leaf, there will be several different like streaks of each color, and then it won't be blended too much. So that's as much as we are going to do for day one, and next time we will turn this into our leaf paper. Okay, today is day 2 of our project. Last time we painted these beautiful fall colored papers. You'll notice there's some lines on the back. We are going to start by cutting those lines to break up our paper into different sections. Okay, so now I have all these beautiful painted papers, and you are going to have a paper that looks like this. These are the different steps to make these leaves down here. So each of these, it goes like this: step 1, 2, 3 to make this leaf, step 1, 2, 3 to make this leaf, all the way down. So they go up and down for the steps. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna draw this with a pencil. I hope you can see it on the video. I'll just make one of each so we can do this together. So it says to start with a straight line going up and down my paper. Then it says to make a curved line. So it's kind of like gonna be a football shaped leaf. And then it says to make the same curve on the other side. That one is easy peasy. Okay, so I'll leave that there for now. This one says to start with a straight line right down the middle. And remember to make them take up the whole paper. We don't want to make a little leaf right in the middle. We want to make it take up the whole paper. So then it says to make kind of like a heart shape. I'm going to try to make it go as close to the edge as I can. Another heart shape over here. So now it really is kind of a heart. And then they add a little stem up here. And you can go ahead and draw these little detail lines, but what we are probably gonna do is we're going to get oil pastels and draw them on the front. So I might wait on the rest of these to draw these designs. But for some of them, it kind of helps you. Like for this one, it says to draw a straight line down the middle, and then these little V shapes on that line. And the reason why it really helps to draw those V shapes before is so you can draw these bumps. So you're basically just gonna draw a bump that goes around each of those lines. So one bump, and they're just kind of U shapes. And you're connecting each one. So see how this U shape I just made is connected to the end of this U shape from before it. And then I'm just gonna make that one go all the way to the bottom. Cute little leaf. Let's do this other one. These two are probably the trickiest two, so let's do this together. A straight line, one V shape kind of towards the middle, and then like I said, this one's probably the trickiest. Oh, and it looks like they actually have another little V shape up here towards the top, so I'll add a smaller V up there. And then you just draw the shape of this fancy leaf around it. And they're basically just drawing several V shapes over and over around. What's nice about leaves is it's kind of hard to make one wrong. Really, no matter how you make them, they're gonna still look like leaves. So this one has two V shapes and then one little V and big V's on the sides. Awesome. Okay, now I have a few left, so I can just pick which ones were my favorite and draw those a few more times. So now we're gonna cut them out. All right, now we're gonna grab our kind of reddish brown, it's a brick color, out of our oil pastel bin. We're gonna flip all of these over, and now we're gonna draw those lines in the center. So this one, oops, let's use this side. This one has the line going down the middle, and I know this one doesn't have any lines, but I'm gonna add a few just to make it a little bit more interesting. I just make these little V lines going up. That looks really cute. This one is the second one, so I'll make the line going up the middle. And then again, just V lines going up the middle. This one has the line up the middle and then the two big V's that go into the center of those bumps. Ooh, I love the colors of this leaf. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, this is the last one. And I like to kind of push down kind of hard on my oil pastel, so then you get those really nice bright lines, whereas if I don't press down very hard, then my lines end up looking more like that. So I make sure to press down hard, or maybe like go back and forth over them a couple times, so then my lines look more like this, because these ones don't show up very well if you're not pressing down kind of hard. So you can see I'm kind of going back and forth over them so they show up real nice. All right, and since they're already cut out, we're gonna glue them down to our background because we don't want to lose them between now and next class, but we want to make sure to leave room in the center for our fall picture that we're going to make. So I'm gonna make sure to kind of put them around the edges, dot, dot, not a lot on our glue. There we go. And since these papers are painted, they kind of need to be pressed down a little bit even after you attach the glue, because they kind of like to peel up off the paper. So I make sure to give them a little tap. You can hold them down for like 10 seconds or so. And I left just enough space in the center of my paper for our fall picture that we are going to draw next time.
All right, friends, that's it for today.
Okay, today is the last part of our stacked pumpkin project. We have been making our leaves. Now we are ready to make our pumpkins. So let's set this aside. We'll set this aside. And we have our paper. Now, I have this idea sheet that you can use to come up with faces for your pumpkins. But first, we want to start with the shape of our pumpkins first. So, towards the very top of our paper, we're going to start with that first pumpkin shape. I'm going to draw it with a Sharpie, just so you guys can see it on the video, but you should draw it with a pencil to start because we all know that we like to move stuff around, erase stuff. So I'm going to start with a Sharpie just so you can see it. I'm going to start really close to the top of my paper, and I want to make about a fist size. For you guys, it might be a little bit bigger than a fist size pumpkin. So I'm going to make a big U shape about the size of my fist. Perfect. Right under the top part of that U shape, I'm going to make a little curve. And that is just for the little indentation for our stem to sit in. And then I like to make the pumpkin continue back behind the stem. And now we're going to make a second pumpkin shape under that one. That should take up the whole middle section. So I wanna be planning my space as I'm going here, because this one should take up the whole middle section, and then the bottom one should be about as wide as the paper can get, and my whole stack itself should take up the whole paper. So I'm gonna go out the side of this top pumpkin, and that looks pretty good. And then the bottom pumpkin should take up the whole rest of the paper. That looks pretty good. Now I can start looking at my faces here. Now, the purpose of these that we're trying to work on is making them 3-dimensional or 3D. So if you can see, they have these lines inside the shapes that make it look like it's been cut out of a pumpkin and it's 3-dimensional. So I'll start with this first one. So you start with the shape by itself. So I'll start with the triangles. And then the whole trick for making them look 3-dimensional is to add parallel lines. And parallel lines are lines that go right next to another line. And it is drawn at the exact same angle. So this would not be parallel lines because eventually they would bump into each other, right? But if they're right next to each other like this, that's a parallel line. So if you can see, we've made our triangle, and then inside there's a smaller triangle, just like that. So I like to make the little lines coming out of the corners, okay? And then I make parallel lines next to the triangle that's already there, okay? It's just the exact same shape, just a little bit smaller. And I like to color them in so they look like they're holes in my pumpkin. And that little line coming up from the corner is what makes it look like a 3-dimensional corner, okay? Let's try another shape. We'll do this little center arched nose. I'm gonna start with that little arch shape. And again, I'm gonna make that little line coming from the corner. And then I'm just going to make a parallel line that does the same thing as this curve here. Now, I only want it to be on this side and on the bottom, okay? So you can see it's the curve line starts right here in the middle and then it comes down. And then I'm gonna make a parallel line for that straight line at the bottom. So again, it's the exact same shape as the original shape, just a little bit smaller and inside. Okay, now I'm gonna make that mouth over here. Now you can mix and match eyes and noses and mouths, and you can of course come up with your own. I'm just sticking to what's on here just to make it easy for you guys. And give them a little tooth. Okay, so now we need to make this three-dimensional. So I'm just adding those little lines, and then we want this bottom shape. Again, I'm just making a parallel line to the line that's already there for the bottom part of the mouth. And then I'm coloring it in. From the tooth right here, I drew a diagonal line and a diagonal line from both corners, and then I drew parallel line, parallel line. I'll do it again here in just a minute. And then we also want to make sure to add the lines on the pumpkin itself, these black lines that we all know pumpkins have. And it also helps to make them look three-dimensional. So if you're noticing, I'm making them kind of curved. They're not just straight lines. They're kind of curved to show that our pumpkin is three-dimensional. All right, now let me do another one. Maybe I'll do the square face one. Okay, we're gonna draw that line from the corner, and then two parallel lines. Parallel line, parallel line. They just run right next to those two lines that are already there. Parallel line, parallel line. And you can see they line up with that line I made from the corner. They both stop when they hit that line I made. I'm gonna color these in. I'm gonna make a triangle nose for this one. Triangle. Little diagonal line, then parallel line, and color it in. The eyes and nose I feel like are quite simple. I feel like it's the mouth is where it gets tricky, trying to make these three-dimensional. So from this top section, or this top tooth, all we need is one diagonal line going back and then the parallel line coming down. Because it's on the top, we don't really see the underneath side of it. But then on this one, two diagonal lines from each corner and then parallel lines coming down. And then inside the smile, a parallel line and a parallel line. Okay, and now let's add those lines to show our pumpkin is three-dimensional. And again, make them curved. Make them curved. It's the same thing, honestly. So we're making parallel lines here, parallel lines here. This is our outside of our pumpkin. I'm making parallel lines for to show the shape. So this is the outside of my pumpkin, has this curve. So I'm making these parallel lines. Same thing. Maybe I'll even put a couple right here in the middle. That looks good. Okay, last one. Which face should I do? This one's kind of funky and we haven't done several of those shapes yet, so we'll do that. He looks kind of grumpy though. Okay, now for this one, the whole thing is just a parallel line because there's no corners. So I'm just gonna go all the way around, parallel line. All the way around with a parallel line and then color it in. Kind of looks like a watermelon. Okay, and just because we haven't done a circle yet, I'm gonna add a circle nose on this guy. So a round nose, and pretty similar to this, honestly, because there's no curve or there's no corner, so it's just going to be a parallel line. I just want to make sure, because there's nowhere that shows you where to stop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top, right in the center, and I'm going to make a parallel line come down, 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 and stop right when it starts to curve up to the side. So it should only be on the side and the bottom is the only place where that line, parallel line should be. I'm going to color that in. Okay, and then last but not least, I'll try this funky smile this guy has. Now, pretty similar to these other two, I'm going to start right in the top middle of that shape, make a curved line that comes down and down to the bottom, curved line down to the bottom on every single one of them. All right, cute pumpkin. Now I just need to add my pumpkin lines that make it look three-dimensional. That looks so good. All right, now we are going to add our shading. Okay, so we're gonna find a shadow color. So for orange, a good shadow color would be like some type of red or a darker orange. So this is a crayon that doesn't have the wrapper on it anymore, which I think is really great for doing the shading. And this is a red violet, I believe. Doesn't have the wrapper on it anymore, so I'm just guessing. But it's kind of a purpley violet or a purpley red. I'm gonna lay it on its side because it kind of gives you that texture. I don't know if you can see it. Kind of gives you that texture. And I'm just gonna go along the side and bottom of each pumpkin. Now, this is a small crayon, but even still, I'm trying to angle it so it's pushing harder on the outside of the pumpkin and it's not pushing quite so hard on the inside of the pumpkin. Or you can also just overlap a little bit more towards the outside. So then you get a shadow kind of like that. You can see how it's lighter in here and darker out here because I kind of angled my crayon as I was drawing, so I was pushing harder on the edge and not quite so hard towards the middle. So I'm going to try that again up here, just going along the whole side and bottom of my pumpkin. And I can also just go back and just barely press towards the inside edge so I get that gradient here. That looks good. And I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom. And I want to go right up against the black line of the outside of my pumpkin. Otherwise it looks a little strange if your shadow doesn't go up to the edge. Okay, I'm just making it be a little bit lighter as it goes towards the center. That looks really good. Okay, now, because I drew that little stem up there, I grabbed a couple greens. You could do green or you could do brown if you want. I'm gonna do lighter green on this side and then a little bit of a darker green on the side that we added our shadow. And last but not least, we're gonna use a white oil pastel to add some highlight lines to our pumpkins as well. And they're just gonna be right next to those pumpkin lines. They're gonna be right next to those. Pretty similar shape and everything. They're gonna be parallel to the outside of our pumpkin. This is just adding some highlights for a little more emphasis. That looks really good. Okay, now I just need to cut it out and glue it down to my background. I'm gonna make sure that I leave that black line on there, but I wanna make sure I cut off all of the extra orange paper that's on the outside of that black line. I don't wanna cut off the black line because it's a really good outline for my drawing. Okay, now I just need to glue it down to my leaf paper. Just do some dots along the outside edge. And depending on where your leaves are, you can kind of arrange your pumpkin. Mine, it makes the most sense to just have it right in the middle, but if yours needs to be towards the bottom or towards one side, that's totally fine. And there we go. There is our stacked pumpkin fall leaves project.